Victim coming out, victim coming out.
The fire ground is dynamic. Priorities can change by the second. This series is about our first priority, life priority. We'll hear from the firefighters that have made a grab in live fire conditions, the decisions they made and the lessons they learned. Listen as they tell you about their experience, learn from their mistakes and their successes. Expect fire and expect victims. Expect the unexpected and plan accordingly. This is Life Priority. Right on, Firefighter Smith. Thanks for sitting down with us again. If you can tell us about this other situation you found yourself in. I remember actually being on this one with you. Maybe it was about a year ago. I think it was in 22s because 29s was second in, and if you can take it from there.
So I believe it was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. It wasn't a real late fire. 22s was the first due. I arrived on Rescue 21 in the tool seat. The initial dispatch had a report of a known victim inside. When we arrived, there were still people in the front yard telling us that there was someone inside. Myself and firefighter Khan masked up en route as we were getting into the neighborhood. Captain Butler had told us that we were going to split Team 3, Team 4, and that we were going to go inside together. So we left the rig, packed up, gloved up, got to the front door, just had to click in and go straight inside. It was a garage fire extending into the kitchen and living room. It had already extended into the attic, and there was good fire production through the man door into the living room inside. Smoke conditions at the front door were, you maybe had 2-3 feet to look under, and I'd say medium heat inside. The initial entryway made a T, and you could go left to the bedrooms or right to the fire location. The right side had, like I said, moderate heat. The left side was low heat with slightly better visibility. The bystander on scene had told us that there was an elderly female that lived in the house and that she liked to sit on her couch and that she would oftentimes sleep on her couch. So normally we prioritize the bedrooms. However, with that report, firefighter Khan made the decision to go left towards the bedrooms. I went right towards the living room to check the couch and work from the fire back. When I made a right to go down the hallway into the living room, I ran into what I thought was like central HVAC ducting. So I put my arms around it to slide it to the side and out of the way, and realized that it was the victim. She was face down with her knees to her chest, and she had like her head wedged in a corner where the hallway meets the living room. I called back for Brian. He came out of the first like bedroom hallway area, and we made the decision that we were not gonna remove her from the structure. She wasn't burned, like, trying to think of how to explain this. She wasn't burned like someone you would normally say you weren't going to remove from the structure, but she had injuries that were obvious to me that we weren't going to work her. So we made the decision not to remove her from the structure. I radioed it to command that we were going to continue a primary and that we needed a crew to come inside and cover the victim. I continued and searched the fire area. Firefighter Khan went and searched the bedrooms, and then we met back up. One of the big things, I don't know, trying to figure out whether or not we should have just pulled her out or we should have left her. When I initially, like I said, when I looked at her, she didn't look burned. She looked swollen. And so I initially tried to pull on her, and she was soft. So it was, try not to get into too much into describing how she was, but it was hard to make a decision whether or not to pull someone out. And kind of the way I've justified it to myself afterwards was the first bedroom that was searched after that was a nursery for her grandkids that she commonly watches. So thankfully there was no one in that room that evening, but had we wasted time pulling out someone who we were gonna determine was deceased and not found an additional victim in that room, it was just something I kind of think about, I guess, going forward when I'm searching. It has to be a yes or a no. This person is possibly savable or not, and we're either going to continue the search or drag them out. And it was just difficult to make kind of for the first time.
Yeah, Firefighter Smith, I remember this call with you. We were going to some fires together at that time, and it was a fun time. But I remember calling you on my way home because we did the hot wash, we did an AR after this fire, but I remember trying to understand, like, how did they, I remember asking you specifically and leaving you a voicemail, like, how did they feel and how did you make that decision? Like, what was your trigger point with it? And you just elaborated on that perfectly. They basically had injuries incompatible with life and you had a decision point to make. I couldn't wrap my head around it, not understanding your position, and this is the first time we've actually talked about it. So I hope that, a call that happened a year ago, and I've worked with you how many times since then, now, we have, a little bit of a platform for people to talk about their events. I know this is a difficult call for you to talk about. If there's somebody that might be hesitating speaking up about, a rescue that they were involved in, is there anything you'd like to, reach out to them and why are you willing to talk to me?
No, I think we've been talking about all the search stuff at 21, and the more we reach out and start talking about the training and talking about experiences we've had, the more of these rescues or even finding someone deceased that I've heard about. And there's a ton of these that don't get talked about, and I think all of them have good points that someone can learn from. You got to remember there's people here who haven't been to a structure fire yet. There's people here who have never found anyone, and they are going to possibly be in a structure fire with the chance to find someone without ever having the slides in the slide tray that you have. So if you can give them the, hey, if you touch someone who's deceased and you decide not to pull them out, don't touch your mask because you can't see through it anymore. Or get low and look at the front door and get an idea of the layout of the house because it's the last chance you're going to get it before the nozzle opens. Little things like that. There used to be like a very big experience gap here, and now it seems like we're very close and guys are talking and sharing their experiences, and you hear a lot of stuff like, oh, I've never heard that before, or he does this, he does that, whereas before we didn't have those conversations. I think the more people are willing to talk about some of the rescues they've had, whether or not they pulled someone out, it's where you found them, how you presented, or how the victim presented when you found them. Were they on the floor? Were they in a bed? What was their age? How big were they? How many people would it have taken to get them out? It's information that we need to share so that we can figure out how we want to do our searches in the district, because the day it's a young kid and it's in your area, you're going to know from listening to all these other people who've had rescues, does time of day matter? Or are we always going to search the bedrooms, right? Certain fire conditions. And, I've listened to a rescue from Hofford who had a victim in the fire room and had them pulled out still breathing. And then you hear other victims who were not in conditions that were as bad and didn't make it. So I think the more we're willing to share, the more it teaches us on what we're capable of here.
Fire service is about tradition. One of our traditions is about passing on our experiences and our lessons learned. When we do this, the story doesn't focus on the individual, but the team and the outcome. These lessons are shared so that you can better serve the public and your fellow firefighters. If you have a rescue and you're hesitant to tell your story, remember, the lessons you share may help save someone else's life or your own. Share your story by contacting us at lifepriority@metrofire.ca.gov.